The State Planning Minister, Matthew Guy, is the man in charge of shaping Victoria's wind farm policy. I spoke to him at his Spring Street office. Matthew Guy, thanks for joining 7:30 Victoria.
Pleasure.
Wind farm companies clearly don't believe that their turbines cause health problems. Do you?
Well, that's still a topic that I believe the jury is out on. There hasn't been a definitive study which has shown an answer either way that has been accepted by either side of that debate. So it is one that I think needs to be studied further.
One wind farm company says it's harder to get a wind farm approved in Victoria than a coal or gas-fired power plant. Do you accept that your wind farm policy is driving clean energy companies out of Victoria?
No, that's just simply not true, that it would require greater permits than a coal-fired or gas-fired power plant. It's just simply not true. That's just, dare I say, spin that's been put around the industry to date. The reality is the government has made it very clear for those who live in regional Victoria or those who are proposing a wind farm what requirements we would put in place and are doing so right now in terms of turbine placement near a principal place of residence. Those are guidelines that can be easily accommodated should there be the discussion between a homeowner and a turbine proponent, and guidelines that we think provide fairness and certainty back into this industry and back into the debate.
Pacific Hydro says that it will now look to invest in other states other than Victoria as a result of your policy, though. Are you happy to see jobs and money that could have come to Victoria go elsewhere?
Well, there's 2 points on that. Some wind turbine companies are now importing the vast majority of their material from China rather than building them in Victoria, and we now have situations where Pacific Hydro, who were a month ago blaming the federal government's energy certificates as the reason for delay in their projects, now blaming the state government in Victoria. So I don't think the story is entirely clear on that. I think there's been a blame in one quarter and blaming the state government the next day, and as I said, I just don't think the story is clear as to where their hold-up actually is. In fact, Pacific Hydro themselves were very clear in saying less than a month ago that there were a number of development-ready projects in Victoria and they were waiting for federal REC certificates to sign that deal off.
Are you being lobbied at the moment by wind farm companies to change your policy?
I've had some clear discussions with a number of them from the moment the policy was revealed back in mid-2010, and I would and have said that I'm very happy to talk to people who are wind companies in Victoria or want to invest in wind energy in Victoria. This government, despite the claims of some, is not at all anti-wind energy. We believe once you have clear, transparent guidelines in place that we can manage wind energy growth, and I think that's what we've sought to do and indeed what we will continue to do.
Is there any room for reconsidering the 2-kilometre buffer zone between wind farms and houses?
Well, what we've said in relation to 2 kilometres is that if there is to be a turbine place that has principal place of residence within those 2 kilometres, that we need to have an agreement between the person who lives in that dwelling and, of course, the turbine proponent. And we were elected on that platform and we'll be implementing that.
So it's non-negotiable?
No.
Let's go to the detail of that 2-kilometre buffer zone. Can one resident stop a wind farm being built?
Well, this is a common argument that some have put to me, and some have got a little bit hysterical about whether or not one person can stop a whole development. Most wind turbine applications are tens of turbines. We're talking 70, 80, some around 120 turbines. So if we got to a situation where one turbine couldn't be constructed, it is not going to scuttle a development of potentially 80 or 90 turbines.
Your government's committed to reducing carbon emissions by 20% by 2020. How can you do that without actually increasing the number of wind farms in Victoria?
Well, we've never said that we wouldn't. And that's the thing. I mean, wind turbines can be placed in Victoria, and we, as I said, have a clear policy to encourage wind investment in Victoria, but we're not going to do it at the expense of people who already live in country Victoria. And I find it an interesting argument that all the people who have come to see me to tell me to change my policy, not a single one of them lives near a wind turbine, not a single one of them wakes up seeing a wind turbine or has issues with shadow flicker or the like. So every single person, particularly the Australian Greens, the Australian Labor Party, every single one of them live in the inner suburbs of Melbourne, nowhere near wind turbines, so it's easy for them to dictate what should happen in country Victoria when they don't live near turbines themselves.
New statistics show that Melbourne's the fastest growing city in Australia. Will you try and reduce the number of people moving here?
No, the government has said that we will support population growth, but that we need to manage population growth in Victoria.
Does it worry you that Melbourne is growing at such a rapid rate? rate?
It's worried me that the previous government for 10 years chronically underinvested in transport infrastructure, and more the point, in 2009, where Melbourne grew by 80,000 people, we actually brought forward just 2,200 lots in growth areas to accommodate that demand. That is just catastrophically short of what we need to achieve to manage population growth and indeed housing affordability.
And on housing affordability, when will you release your plans to tackle that issue?
We'll have an urban renewal authority established certainly before the end of the financial year. We have a program to bring forward 50,000 lots this year in growth areas to manage urban growth boundary change should it need to in growth areas. So we're out there, we're doing what we can, we're acting as quick as we can. There is no silver bullet, I know that, but the government is reacting from a 10-year lag and a 10-year underinvestment in infrastructure and housing affordability as quick as we can.
Matthew Guy, thanks for speaking to 7:30 Victoria.
Thank you.